Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start the meeting. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the apologies, which is item 60 this evening. Just wondering if you've had any apologies. I know that we've got some from Oliver Whittle and Councillor Chris Dowling as well. Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Before we move on to any other items on the agenda, we've just got an announcement, some good news. We've just acquired the Marks and Spencer's site this morning in the town centre, so it's a good opportunity for this council, and we'll bring more information when we have it. As it's just hot off the press, I just thought I'd make an announcement about that. So really good news and a very good opportunity for this town centre. Okay, the next item is the minutes of the previous meeting, and they go from page 7 to 18. Does anyone have any comments or amendments that they would like to make? Thank you very much. Item 62 is the declarations of interest. Does anyone have any? Stuart?
So I'd like to go first and address agenda item 65, the shareholder report on a non-executive director of WBC Holdings.
Councillor Jorgensen.
I need to declare personal interest in agenda item 65, the shareholders report, as my wife is a paid non-executive director of WBC Holdings Limited.
Councillor Margetts.
I need to declare an interest in 65 on non-executive director of Optals.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Sorry, I'm the same. I have to declare an interest in item 65 as I am a director, head director in one of the companies, WBC Holdings.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, moving on to item 63, public question time. And the first question we've got this evening is from Alexandra Fraser to Councillor Norman Morgenson. Thank you very much.
Hi. A plan for Carnival Leisure been approved with no provision for a children's splash pool and instead a movable floor. How are the council, as new contract operator, proposing to manage the swimming needs during high times such as weekends when there are families with toddlers and older children?
Thank you for your question. Each of the operators on the shortlist of those we're considering to run the leisure centres is a market leader in managing local authority leisure and sports facilities, so they have experience of balancing the demands of use of multiple pools. We will work with them with the aim of optimising the timetabling of the sessions in the two pools. Our aim clearly is to offer a range of opportunities, including for families with small children. We in the leisure operator will wish to maximise the use of the facilities and a range of user groups. The teaching pool will have a movable floor so that the depth of the pool can be altered from full depth to zero depth and many points in between. It can therefore cater for a wide range of needs. The floor depth will be adjusted in around 5 minutes, so this can be done between sessions, such that a toddler group could be enjoying the pool a few minutes after an adult session is finished and vice versa, so quite flexible.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so you've got a weekend, you've got parents with their 6-year-old, their 10-year-old, their 3-year-old, then how do you do that? How are you going to, like, when you've got that prime time, the weekend when families have their leisure time together, how will you manage that? I'm just curious. It doesn't, I don't understand it. That's why I ask.
So there'll be a full depth pool, which will obviously be available all the time. And then the other pool, you can adjust the depth, so different users can use it at different times. If there's a peak time, and it looks from the figures that we have, the peak time in the whole week is in the middle of the day on a Sunday. There may be the sessions there where the pool depth is low, so that the toddler groups can use it at that time. That's the peak time during the week. But all of that needs to be reviewed. And clearly, the leisure operator will want to maximise the use of the facilities. So we just need to speak to people and find out when the demand is. But we've done surveys, so we know when the demand for the current facility is.
Thank you very much for your questions. The next question this evening is from Indy Sindhu, and it's a question for Councillor Jorgensen. Would you like to come up and ask a question?
Over 700 residents have signed a petition to have our children's beach pool yet the plans have been approved and haven't included an amendment taking into consideration what the community has requested. Why have the council chosen to ignore the concerns of a growing section of our community?
Thank you very much for your question. We're not ignoring the concerns of those who have signed the petition, but we aim to provide a balanced range of facilities for our 165,000 residents across the borough. It's also our aim to have these facilities be self-financing, in that the user fees will pay for the capital and the running costs. So far, I haven't seen a business case for a beach pool or carnival pool that would pay back the investment in it. The forecast number of users is too low to allow it to pay for itself in that way. So the new carnival pool complex will include quite a number of facilities. There'll be a forecourt sports hall with 400 seats for cultural events, 25-metre 6-lane swimming pool, a teaching pool with movable floor that will just be sort of that, 100-station gym, studio and a cafe, and elsewhere in the building will be a library. In addition, across the borough during the next year, we'll open new facilities at Rice Green and Alberfield, plus a new artificial pitch at Embrook School. We recently opened an artificial pitch at Alberfield, and tennis courts and pavilion at Cantley Park. We also plan to build a complete new leisure centre at Bulmersh and Woodley. So at the moment, our approved capital expenditure on leisure facilities is around £30 million. So we're spreading it across the borough. At the same time, our neighbour, Reading Borough Council, appears to have lost control of its finances and it is closing facilities, not opening. We've catered for small children splashing around in the water by the proposed inclusion of the learner pool that we just talked about. Just to repeat, it will have a floor which can be moved, so that the depth of the water can be adjusted. So at peak times, we can have it as a toddler splash pool, and then at other times it can be used for other activities. So it's clearly good to get youngsters in the habit of coming to leisure centres and using the pools, so we hope that that facility will be used in that way, and that encourages people obviously in the long term to live a healthy lifestyle, which is to be encouraged. At the moment, unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be sufficient demand to make a beach pool a high priority in our spending plans. Thank you.
Would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yeah, I will actually. So you mentioned there wasn't a business case that said in support of keeping the carnival pool with the splash pool intact. However, I'm quoting here from the National Policy Planning Framework. They say that the leisure facilities, the new leisure facilities should not be removed unless the replacement is an improvement on existing facilities or at least an equivalent. Clearly, taking something away, such as the splash pool, and not replacing it is in contravention of this. So how have you taken the National Policy Planning Framework and this sentence in particular into account?
Right, thank you. A couple of points. I think, firstly, although the beach pool won't be there will be the teaching pool, which will have a movable floor. So the depth of water can be adjusted, so a full range of activities can happen in that pool. So we're not losing, in fact, we're gaining a facility that can be more widely used. These new facilities are very flexible in their use, allow disabled people to use the facility as well. I've been and seen the one at Hart, and it's quite impressive, and the sort of facility is really nice. In terms of the usage, we have surveyed the usage of the current facility over the last week or so, and I was quite surprised actually at the outcome of that. In the periods of Monday to Friday last week, there was less than 20 people used that facility in any one day. The numbers were counted every half hour during the whole day, so there's probably even some double counts of people were in there for more than half an hour and counted twice, and that's children and adults. So less than 20 people. It peaked on a Sunday, and there were 119 on Sunday. But again, there'll be some double counts, and that includes adults. So the usage, and if you multiply up the fees that generates, you can very easily see that a facility just wouldn't pay for itself, I'm afraid. So unless you can convince the council that hundreds more people are going to be using such a facility, then I think it's unlikely that we would be looking to build such a thing. So just to repeat, the teaching pool will provide the flexibility for all age groups and abilities to use swimming pools. But I don't see the case at the moment for adding a beach pool to the new facility, I'm afraid. I'd like to be able to, but I don't see the case for it.
Can I just say here though, you talk about surveys, but it doesn't
Sorry,
take into account.
excuse me. You've already asked a question and a supplementary, but I'm sure that Councillor Jorgensen will be happy to
Yeah, if we've got any more,
have a discussion with you either after the meeting or arrange a meeting with you at another time. But thank you both very much for coming and asking questions this evening. Thank you. Now we're moving on to the item 64 on the agenda, which is the member question time. And the first question this evening is from Rochelle Shepherd-Debay, and it's asked to Charles Rodette tonight, as Alder Little is not here.
Actually, it doesn't probably go to David since he involves him as well. But, what are you doing to stop your Conservative colleagues in government imposing a negative support grant on WBC, especially since the chair of the Tory constituency is a WBC councillor?
Who's me?
Yes, you.
Didn't tell you.
Thank you for your question. I think I'll start then if David wishes to say anything, he's obviously more than welcome. The fundamentals of the current funding formula that distributes available resources across local authorities has been in place for many years and has been presided over by all three of the main national political parties. Our exec member for finance at the time, Anthony Pollock, and the leader of the council at the time, Keith Baker, supported by our chief finance officer, were extremely successful in working with our local Conservative MPs to get a better deal for working on when the recent 4-year national finance settlement was announced in 2016. Negative RS Revenue Support Grant, RSG, is in essence a charge on this council's business rates. And I think we all have to ask ourselves, why are we facing this? We've been efficient as a council. We've got better value for our residents, basically by cutting back on unnecessary costs. Other councils, though, have refused to become more efficient and continue to waste residents' money. Once again, the Conservative government is trying to clear up the mess left by others. We see negative RSG as other councils punishing Wokingham for being good value for money. We've been working hard and trying to set out our case for keeping local taxes local, so that the money raised by you and every other taxpayer is spent on you. The new leader and the deputy leader have been meeting with senior members of the government, including a recent meeting with the Community Secretary on the 13th of November, where this issue was raised. The Local Government Association is also working on behalf of us and other councils to lobby for more devolved financial powers to raise more money locally. I hope all political parties will support this approach, as well as the various other initiatives we're taking to continue to try and get the best value for money, to keep taxes as low as possible, and to provide top-class services for residents.
Thank you for reminding me. Right. What I'd like to say is that there's a strange formula which was established under Labour, I believe, and that formula has never actually been changed. And under that formula, Wokingham Borough residents are the richest this side of Gallifrey. Now, that needs to be looked at, and various governments of all persuasions, including the coalition government, have threatened to do that, but they still haven't done it. And the one thing which we have done, apart from what Charles has mentioned, is we asked our external auditor to actually, instead of just simply saying we were good at value for money, to explain back to the council what that meant. So, for example, if we are particularly good at one area, where we have, say, 10 staff to do a job which requires in other areas 20 staff, or vice versa, that those points are highlighted, and those figures are given to the other authorities and to ourselves to say, you could be better at this, please speak to authority XYZ. And in that respect, I would appreciate the assistance and help from all political parties to actually start that process going. As Charles has said, we had a meeting, Charlotte and I had a meeting with the Secretary of State, and one of the main items we talked about was the level of our revenue support grant. And just in case you're not aware, We are the lowest funded authority in the country.
Well, it hasn't happened, or it hasn't been said already today. Charles, we're going to have to start saying this every meeting.
And just in case you think that's only in the revenue support grant, it's not. It's also on the amount that we will be keeping out of the rates that we collect from businesses. We are one of the bottom 4 in education, social care, and also another interesting one, the lowest on GP funding. All of these points we are tackling, but I think Charles indicated very clearly, because it is such an efficient authority, we still retain weekly bin collections, etc. We are building country parks all over the place. Because of that, all governments of all persuasions seem to think that we can carry on without that assistance, but we're not prepared to do it anymore, and with your help we can get it changed. But we have to help other authorities. Sorry, is that
sure, yeah. I'm going to say yes, because I'm sure the supplementary.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you doing to make Mr. Redwood get off his xenophobic rant on, wait, let me finish, his xenophobic obsession, and actually help the local residents by getting us a decent support grant?
Can I answer that? It was our esteemed MP, John Redwood, who arranged and got us that meeting with Sanjay Javid, where we not only talked about the bad level of funding we got, but in addition to that, the truly awful 5-year land supply issue, which I know that you are well aware of, and I know that Parish councils
4.94%.
Exactly, and also we're the lowest funded authority.
And it was also John Redwood that helped us with the 4-year settlement.
That's right.
As well, so perhaps you should track to your statement.
Sorry, can I add something?
Charles, yeah.
Just very quickly going to add, on top of the lobbying work that's been doing, obviously we are taking steps independently to try to make the authority more self-sufficient financially, such as the property investment strategy that was discussed at council last week, the business rates pilot, which we're going to talk about later, and the income from the regeneration of the town centre. Now these are all things which we're working on top of this to try and improve this situation.
We got 21st Century Council.
Of course, thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question this evening is a question from Imogen Shepherd Bay, and it's me.
Good evening, everybody. Okay. It has become apparent that during the many of the projects that Woking Borough Council is involved in the needs of disabled residents are being overlooked or sidelined. It is normal for councils to consult with disability groups and complete the quality impact assessment during the design phases. This should be done in all service areas, including highways, planning, property services, etc. What processes and procedures are in place in the Woking Borough Council to ensure that these consultations occur and that they meet the obligations under the Equalities Act in all of the projects and service areas that the Council is involved in? And it's a question for you, Charlotte.
Thank you very much for your question. The Executive, as you may be aware, approved the Council's equality policy in March 2017, and it may be just before you joined the Council, but this is underpinned by guidance and an equality impact statement template. This is supported by e-learning modules for all staff and specific e-learning for managers as well. Consultation with residents takes place in line with the statutory requirements of this item being considered. The Council works with an approved Council plan that includes vision and principles that translate into service plans and individual team and personal development targets. This includes the underpinning principle to look after the vulnerable. This should therefore be embedded in everything that we do. The Council plan is in the process of being refreshed at the moment as well. Following implementation of Phase 1 of the 21st Century Council, the formation of a strategy and commissioning team will also help to ensure a consistent and joined-up approach to both equality impact assessments and consultation. These changes will enable the Council to further enhance its approach to community engagement and particularly to disability groups. You've had a supplementary.
I certainly do. Okay, so we have to have due regard to the need to advance equality opportunities and defend further within the Equalities Act, and we are required to promote support for people with particularly disabilities in this instance. I found with the Carnival Pool there were a lot of things missed. Although people talked about the British Landing would put a couple of seats in, they didn't look at automated doors. They didn't look at we had seating that's outside in the rain. These are modern buildings. These are new buildings, and I don't understand why we are not meeting the standards that are required as part of the code of practice. And my concern is what are we going to do to fix them, and how are we going to ensure that this thing is better done with Bullmarsh Pool?
In terms of Bullmarsh Pool, there will be an assessment done at the appropriate time. In fact, for the Carnival Pool, I have the quality impact assessment here. And
I've seen it, it's missing so many things.
Okay, I'm happy to take away some of the suggestions in terms of what you think is missing, but there are also a number of things which have been taken into consideration, which I hope that you would feel are appropriate and meet the needs of the users.
Yes.
And I'm happy to read out some of the points, and those are: the public spaces have been designed to optimise inclusivity and accessibility, and those include things like the changing rooms, accessible toilets, pool access pods, generous corridor sizes and lobby spaces, 2 vertical circulation lifts, for example, etc., etc.
Okay.
So I know that you mentioned
power-assisted doors on the car park.
I know that in particular there's been some issues raised about the car parking, and that was raised to Councillor Bowring at the last council meeting, and there are conversations going back and forth about that. So those are the particular items that Councillor Bowring is addressing at the moment.
Please don't make me come here and ask again for commercials.
No, because there will be a totally separate assessment, as you would expect for that. But if, as you say, there are particular items with doors, etc., like that we can address, then perhaps we can organise a meeting to look at the specific items that you think that we've missed, and we can take those back and have another look at them. And I'd be very interested to hear about what you think is not included in here.
Thank you very much. Who's up next?
Okay, the next question this evening is from Councillor Ross, and it's to Councillor Norman Jorgensen, and I'm not sure, no, he's not here, so he'll have a written reply. The next question is from Councillor Lizzie Ferris, and it's again to Councillor Norman Jorgensen.
You're busy tonight, Norman.
Thank you. I, like many councillors, have been approached by a number of local residents concerned about a significant increase in dog boarding licence fees for 2018, where the current figure of £173 per annum is projected to increase to £371 per annum. I have been through the tables contained under agenda item 66 and it appears to be missing. Could the exec member responsible for this area kindly explain how they can justify such a massive increase of 114%?
Thank you for your question, Lindsay. This issue was first brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago by Councillors Richard Dolinsky and Alison Swallow. I agree with you that the increase is large and therefore difficult for dog boarders to accommodate. So I asked for our charging to be reviewed. The increase in the dog boarding licence application fee was agreed, and I've been trying to track this meeting agreed it, and I've been told this evening it was the executive in November 2016 that approved it as part of the budget setting process for 2017-18. The price reflects the cost of carrying out the service, and hence for there to be a lower price and still recover costs, the amount of work would have to decrease, so we have to do less. Options, including this, are being considered, and we plan to bring forward a proposal early in the new year. Whilst this issue is being considered, the Council will not take enforcement action against any person who has not renewed their licence.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you for that. I think there's some movement. I think the issue is that a lot of the dog boarders are semi-retired or retired people who look after the odd dog every now and then. Oh, yes, odd number of dogs, and they're not a professional business as such. And the message I've received from 3 or 4 people who've contacted me is that with such a high fee, some have even starting to say, well, I won't do it. But I think it's encouraging that if you can get a fee that was down to something what it was before or close to it, then I think that might help. So I think the issue is that, are you able to differentiate between what I would call professional business, where I can see there being a lot of activity, to somewhere where you've got a small business which are looking after dogs on a sort of irregular basis, because it's the smaller side that's really that side that's been impacted by the increase.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting idea, and I think that's worth having a look at as well.
I don't know about the licence conditions, that's the issue.
Something like £371 if you're charging £10 a day for a dog or whatever, then it takes quite a long time to recoup.
There's a vet fee as well.
So yeah, so it is quite a price. The flip side of that, of course, is the whole point of licensing is to make sure that things are done properly and down the spread of disease in the animal population. So it is a balance, but we are looking at it, and we'll certainly take views into account, come back with something probably early in the year that we can have a look at.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your question. The next question is from Councillor Chris Smith to, again, Lorne Jorgensen. It's your right tonight.
Thank you. I notice that this executive meeting will be discussing rebuilding Gormesh Leisure Centre, spending £14.5 million, and £750,000 will be spent on new 3D pitches at Embrook. Can you let me know what capital spending has occurred or is planned for Loddon Valley Leisure Centre?
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Loddon Valley Leisure Centre is in good condition. The condition survey was done not so long ago, so that's good news. So there's no major works foreseen to the fabric of the building. Spaces within the building have been adapted over the last few years to meet the changing needs, and several more are planned. The detail of this will be agreed with the new leisure operator, who will be on site from the 1st of May. The negotiations with these leisure contractors is at a fairly sensitive stage, so there is, I'm afraid, a limit to what I can say in public at the moment. What I can do is give you a more detailed confidential response, but I can assure you that whichever of the leisure operators we choose, they have plans, we have plans for further improvements to Loddon Valley Leisure Centre. And one of the examples of the thing that's been done in the last couple of years is the refurbishment of the courts at Chalfont Park, where the courts were resurfaced, and new fencing, upgraded lighting was put in so it can be used for netball and other activities. And the tennis courts on site next to the leisure centre have also been improved. So there are plans, and the detail will come out in the public during the next year. I'm happy to give you confidential information.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question?
As the information is kind of confidential at the moment, I'll review it and provide any supplementaries separately. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much to all members in the public, and thank you for all of the members' questions this evening. And now we're going on to the matters for consideration. So the first item tonight is item 65, which is the shareholders' report, and that's starting on page 19. And Councillor Charles Margetts is going to present this paper this evening.
Thank you. So page 19, the shareholders' report. The executive's asked to note the budget monitoring position for the month ending the 30th of September and the operational update. To go through the brief kind of headlines on this, some time ago the council established a group of housing subsidiaries to provide affordable housing across the borough and to generate a financial return for the council. The aim of the financial return was to help to make the council more financially self-sufficient. The housing body is now well established. This year, Wokingham Housing Limited handed over 125 homes to its sister housing companies, Loddon and Ferrybrook Homes, and will generate a profit of 1.1 million. Next year, 60 homes at a profit just short of 1 million. To go over to page 20 and 21 to pick out the key points of that, WBC Holdings is on budget. Ferrybrook Homes this year is going to make a profit ahead of schedule. And to go on to page 22, Optalis is also basically making a profit as things stand at the moment. Optalis, obviously, the setup of that is reducing the council's operational costs for adult social care by about £1 million a year. So the executive is asked to note those points and happy to hand over to any questions.
Thank you very much. Julian McGee on that?
I'd just like to ask a question about Phoenix Avenue. It's good news that we've handed over so many houses so quickly. Can you confirm that there's no impact on this local authority following the slight delay of handing over the final houses?
Thank you. There is no impact as we have reclaimed the additional cost from the developers as per the contract.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Monroe?
Charles, do you know how many people have actually been accepted and are going to move into Phoenix Avenue?
Thank you. I believe the answer is 58 so far.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Great. So all of those, the recommendations on page 19. So we're asked to note the recommendations. So all of those in favour of noting the recommendations as written. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Moving on to page 27, the report for fees and charges, and again it's over to Councillor Margetts.
Thank you. Fees and charges, page 27. The recommendation is the executive approves the schedule of fees and charges as set out in Appendix A. Again, to go over the brief background to this for the benefit of everybody, most of the charges have increased by inflation, and the increases are in line with the RPI at July 2017. As on top of this, we benchmarked the charges against other authorities and have realigned them where they are appropriate. We believe a modest increase in fees and charges is necessary. Financially, this generates an extra £60,000 a year for the council taxpayer. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor McGee's on there.
Just one question, and I think that you might need to sort of take this away and actually have a look at it. With the estates winding up fees, is that to cover the registrar and us advising all the local government departments where we actually act on behalf of the estate and where we're actually looking to have sort of transparent fees? So we're actually moving from an hourly rate for a fee to just a single fee?
Thank you. Yes, you're correct in what you said. Basically, the idea of this information is on page 61 is to try and present it rather than an hourly charge as a clearer fixed charge. Simplification, it's more transparent, easier to follow, and it's also looking at what other authorities do that's best practice and seems to work.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore?
I think my question is probably for Simon, but take you to page 43, and we're talking planning application fees. We seem to have capped them at 51 units, and as we want to encourage larger sites, I just wonder whether we're missing a trick there.
You make a good point, Councillor Ashwell. I've spotted that myself and made a note to ask. I think there's two possibilities. One, that we introduce some higher bands. The other is, and I will need to check this and come back to you, but I believe for the very large applications that we give pre-application advice for, we agree a bespoke fee because of the sheer scale.
Yeah.
Sometimes a very considerable amount of pre-application work.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or queries? Sorry?
It's a charge to the developers.
Yeah, as much as possible, try.
Okay. The recommendation is as written on page 27, so all of those in favour of the recommendation. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next item on the agenda this evening is on page 63. It's the Embrook School 3G pitch, and this report is Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you very much. The proposal is to install a 3G artificial pitch at Embrook School. It will be funded by releasing 375,000 of Section 106 funds matched by funds from the Fruitbowl Foundation. The pitch will be used by the school during school days and will be available for wider use at other times. And the pitch will be managed and operated by a new leisure operator. And the council will be setting aside a sum of money each year which will then be used to pay for resurfacing in the future. If approved tonight, the next step will be to apply for planning permission for the facility. Thank you.
Great. Mark Ashwell. Richard?
Yes, Norman, you know that as president of Woking and Embrook Football Club, I really welcome this facility. We got 40 teams that are playing out of a patch of ground at Lowther Road at Embrook. So the only thing I would ask is that we are involved at an early stage with the planning, because we're sort of not that good, our adults teams, and we keep kicking the ball over the fences at Montague Park because they're too small. So if we're going to be, but joking aside, if we're going to be involved at an early stage with the planning application, I think we can feed in there. And also note that sort of the football club's involvements locally are unlocking half of this from the FA, from the Football Association. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think that input, I'm sure, will be very welcome at the planning stage.
Thank you.
Use your experience to get the best possible facility.
Cheers.
And height of fence.
And height of fence. Big time.
Councillor Weeks.
Such athletic players.
Well, yes.
Obviously, there's the £375,000 is actually money that's coming from developers' contributions, so it's not coming from council taxpayers in Woking. And obviously that unlocks, hopefully, if we're successful, the further 375 for the Football Foundation. Obviously, whilst this is primarily is initially aimed at school, can you confirm it will be available outside of school hours and in the school holidays across the community? It already sounds as though some of the Wokingham teams are hoping to be able to use it. Can you confirm that will be the case, please?
Yes, the school will have the right use of it during school hours, so in evenings and at weekends it will be available for the wider community. And because it's managed by it will be managed by the operator of all the leisure facilities, that will hopefully improve usage, and the bookings will be straightforward, and people that are members of the operator across various sites will get sight of it, so hopefully that will encourage use. It sounds like there's plenty of people available to use it, so hopefully it'll be a grand success.
Would it be fair to assume? Sorry, would it be fair to assume that the company selected to manage it will have some kind of centralised booking? Because what I was thinking of is they're heavily in use, and if somebody's trying to book a 3G pitch and it's not available when they want to use it, presumably they could be offered alternatives, for instance, such as Arborfield or somewhere else, so that we could maximise the revenue, again, to minimise the cost to our taxpayers.
That's certainly the objective, to get them to manage it centrally. Yeah.
Councillor Margaret.
Thank you. Councillor Jorgensen, I was going to ask, there's a note in here that the main issue that may arise will be the potential for fluvial flooding, which obviously would not be good on a 3G football pitch. Can you confirm the flood risk will be fully evaluated in the planning, and how?
Yes, it's flooding in that general area has been an issue, and clearly we want to ensure that the pitches themselves won't flood. So our flood risk, people are looking at that and working with planners. I mean, hopefully also at the same time, by installing the pitch, there could be an opportunity to help with flood alleviation in that area in general. So I'd like to think that we're getting improvement out of this, but it's certainly an issue that needs to be resolved.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Really great news. So extra capacity. And 3G pitches can be used all year round and don't go muddy, so great. And money from developers, and potentially match funding from Football Foundation as well. So fantastic news for both the community and also the schools. So altogether, win-win. So excellent news. So if there's no further questions or queries, the recommendation is on page 63. All those in favour of the recommendation as printed. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next item is item 68, and that's on page 67. And here's your night again. Councillor Margaret.
Thank you. This is the insurance procurement retender. The executive is recommended to approve the procurement of the council's insurance cover, delegation of the design of the contract specification to the Director of Corporate Services, and delegation to the Director of Corporate Services authority to award the contract. Key headlines of this are: this is a retender of a 7-year contract which expires in June next year. Obviously we have to start the process now, basically, to get to the right point in advance. WBC is responsible for contents and assets of over £1 billion, so it's a significant sum of money, significant amount of risk. And what the people are being asked to do tonight is to approve the procurement process, to go out to the market using our brokers to seek the most cost-effective solution, basically, for the taxpayer.
Thank you very much indeed. Any questions? Councillor McGee-Sumner.
Thank you very much. I've actually got two questions. One is, I fully support the retender of this, and I think it's a good idea that we've actually taken on slightly more risk to mitigate the premium. The first part of the question is, have we ever looked at using more than one broker? Because obviously it is a sizable account. And then the second part is, which you may or may not know the answer to now, is do we have cyber cover in place?
Thank you. Yes, in terms of your first question regarding more than one broker, officers have been requested to consider this as part of the tender process, basically. The second one, cyber cover, I understand that we are, but I'll come back to you with a full written answer on that.
If there are no other questions, then we'll go to the recommendations, 3 recommendations printed on page 67, and we'll take them as written. All those in favour? Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next item is item 69, the Berkshire Business Rate Pilot, and again it's Councillor Markets.
Thank you. So page 73, Berkshire Business Rates Pilot. Recommendation that the Executive note and support the application for 100% business rates pilot in 2018-19. Headlines behind this are basically that the 6 Berkshire unitary authorities are putting this proposal in response to an invitation to all local authorities to run a 100% business rates pilot. The main part of this is basically it's submitted as a bid for a pilot for business rates retention. The potential financial gain to WBC is of £1 million in business rates retention, as well as £25 million for strategic investment across Berkshire, which would benefit the regional economy on a wider scale. It's a 1-year pilot programme. It could possibly become 2 if government proposals for national implementation are postponed. We expect to hear the answer to this in early 2018, and while keeping everything crossed for a positive outcome. And yes, happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Lee?
Well, yeah, I've just got a, sorry, it's not so much a question, it's just pointing out a couple of things. On page 79, the financial arrangement section, which says that each Berkshire unitary will increase its rate retention share from 49% in the current system to 99%. Just so everybody's aware, we do not keep 49% of the business rates that we collect. It's all one of these other lowest funded issues again. They start chopping and say, well, we'll have 50%, you're going to 50%. And by the way, you don't need all of that 50%, so it just keeps getting cut down. So the £1 million, because we collect in the region of 60 million business rates in this authority. And I would just also point out that the second paragraph in that page refers to the Reading Mass Rapid Transport Network. That's the Reading and Wokingham Mass Rapid Transport Network, which will run from Coppin Beach all the way into Reading Station. And just on that, which we don't mention here, but we've had another recent win of a £3 million grant towards improving the Winners railway station. So I think that was an additional one of the things that we talked with the Secretary of State about, just to reconfirm that we are chasing at all times the fact that we are so badly funded. And the problem is really because we are so efficient. And they assume we can just carry on saving money each and every year. Well, I think it's time that some of the other authorities learn from this authority how to run an efficient organisation. So it wasn't a question, Chairman, just a few points to know. Well, I just thought I'd mention that.
Is that the meeting you were talking about yesterday, this pilot? Sorry.
Sorry, which one?
You mentioned the meeting on Monday. Is this the pilot scheme you're talking about?
No, that's a different separate thing. That's another thing which is going on, which I've invited you to join us to have the benefit of your experience. Sorry, Cameron.
sorry, there are lots of things going on with pilots at the moment. Okay. Norman, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Beyond the rate retention aspect of this, can you just spell out the benefits to Woking Borough of this scheme, please?
Thank you. There's the financial gain of the £1 million business rate retention. Otherwise, it's the regional issues, basically the Slough Mass Rapid Transit scheme and the Reading and Wokingham scheme, which David's just been talking about. But I should emphasise this is a bid. We hope we'll be successful. We can't promise that at this stage. And, you know, we've submitted our application. We have to hope for the best and these benefits come in.
Thank you. Any other questions or queries? No.
So, sorry, I just have one. Can I just confirm that it won't end up taking more from us under this scheme?
Keep our head down. No detriment.
I can see no circumstance from my knowledge of how that could possibly be.
So, can I just confirm that that's been recorded, what you said?
Yeah. Sadly, yes, David.
Often with some pilots, there's a possibility of it being a negative gain sometimes, but with this pilot, it was being mooted initially as a possible negative, but they then rode back on it, and now it has been confirmed that it is a nil detriment. So this is a positive, and this is why we then went ahead with going into this scheme as a pilot. But I will point out that there are lots of other authorities that have put their names forward for this pilot, so we may or may not be successful, but if we are successful, then it will be extra money going into the pot here, and also the benefit, as was pointed out earlier, about the Reading and Wokingham Mass Rapid Transport scheme as well. So it's a win-win if we are successful with this bid. So without any further questions or queries, we'll go to the recommendation as printed on page 73. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next three items on the agenda have part two papers. So if anybody needs to talk about any of the items, any of the bits that are discussed in the pink papers, can you let me know, please? And we'll have to exclude the public and the press. So, I'll assume that you don't, unless you say that you would like to. So the first item is page 83, which is the leisure management contract, and we'll pass over to Councillor Williamson.
Thanks very much. The current leisure operations contract expires on the 30th of April 2018. So through a tender process, the Council has received bids from leisure operators for a new contract. So we now wish to move to securing a contract for the delivery of the leisure facility operations from the 1st of May next year, hence this paper this evening. The current contract delivers an income to the Council of about £680,000 per annum, and the new contract will provide an additional £200,000 per year. The proposed new contract will include the management of Long Valley Leisure Centre, Carnival Pool, St Crispin's Leisure Centre, Beaumont Leisure Centre, and two additional facilities coming on stream in 2018, which are the Arborfield Leisure Centre and the Ryes Green Leisure Centre. And we heard earlier about the 3G pitch that will be added to the mix. This will be a considerably enhanced leisure offering over what is in place today. This, in turn, will be further enhanced once the new Beaumont and Carnival Pool centres are built. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any questions?
It's a bit of a statement really, but it's the dual use I'd like to bring your attention to. As lead member for Children's Services on Monday, I had the pleasure of going around our new Arborfield facility with the head teacher of Bohan. We took about 3 hours to get around it. It's just unbelievable what we're doing there in collaboration with education. So education using it during the day and us in the evening, the same as the potential 3G pitch at Embrook. So I suppose, Councillor Jorgensen, I'm giving you a little opportunity to showcase all the wonderful stuff we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the new facility at Arborfield will be a considerable addition to our repertoire. It's a really seems a very well built building. It's quite substantial, and then all the pitches around it as well. The new 3G pitch that we opened there just a couple of months ago. So it's quite an extensive facility. So I mean, it's a large hall. Just to bring to everyone's attention, most of our halls are 4 badminton courts in size. London Valley Leisure Centre is a bigger one. It's got 10. This Ardenfield one's got 8 badminton court sized hall. It feels massive when you're in it. So there's also 2 dance studios, a climbing wall, 50 station gym, the 3G pitch that I talked about. There are also outdoor tennis courts and netball courts there. I was there myself a few weeks ago, and it's a really very smart facility. So for all the people that live around that area and all the people that are moving into the new houses down that way, it should be a great facility for the years to come.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just really to mention that residents in the south-east, the Finchipstead area in particular, have always had to travel into St Crispin's to use a leisure centre, and clearly having this on the edge of Finchipstead is going to be a plus for them, hopefully their health and well-being.
Good. Great. Okay. And also, just from my own perspective in Ryesh Green already, the pitches are up, 3G pitches, and they're absolutely stunning. And the other pitches, the grass pitches have been refurbished. And really what this council is doing in terms of the investment into sports and leisure and for the greater good of the health and well-being of all of our residents is stunning when you look at what's happening around the rest of the country with facilities that are really completely worn out and been shut. And you know, I think this is a really strong message that we are investing in the health and the future of all of our residents. And I can't recommend this paper strongly enough to all of our executives. Absolutely, just as you say, a contrast, very stark contrast. We're just down the road in Reading, and I've had, I would say the pleasure of using their facilities, but it hasn't been, with my own daughter for swimming purposes, and truly some of these facilities are just absolutely outstanding, and the ones that we are refurbishing when they are up and running will be absolutely amazing. So the recommendations are on page 83, recommendation 1 and 2, and I'll take them as written. All of those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. So the next item on the agenda is Bullmarsh New Build, and again it's Councillor Neil Jorgensen.
Thank you very much. The current leisure centre of Bullmarsh is somewhat tired and dilapidated, and that's probably understating it somewhat. The cost of refurbishing it would be very high, and even then there are some serious flaws in the building, so it's probably not a good idea in the first place. So the current facility has run at a loss for many years, and there seems to be little prospect of making the current facility pay its way. It was decided about a year ago to build a replacement centre, and a paper was agreed by executive in November 2016, starting that process. This paper proposes building a new leisure centre at a cost of 14.54 million. The proposed facility will include a 4-court sports hall, a 25-metre 6-lane swimming pool, a 75-station gym, 2 studios, a teaching pool with movable floor, and a cafe. As well as the obvious benefits of being new, this centre will have more facilities than the current one, as can be seen by the comparison on page 106. Set them out side by side there in that table, so you can see that this is a considerably enhanced offering on what's there at the moment. You can also see on page 105 in the table, this is option E that we're proposing, that over the course of the expected lifetime of this facility, it will make a profit, but it is a small profit, but it is a profit. So that's the figure of the 1,538,119 spread over 44 years. To do the comes out about £35,000 per year. There'll also be an arrangement with the leisure operator for the council to share in any financial upsides. That's spelled out on page 106, just above the table. So if our forecasts of footfall in the new facility are low, then we will share in upsides generated. And with Reading closing facilities not so far away, that's a real possibility. Bulmer School will use some of the facilities at times during the school day, and there will be separate changing rooms for the school kids and the general public, so it can be kept apart for safeguarding reasons. So I recommend this paper to you, and I hope that we can support this exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jorgensen. Councillor Monroe.
So, can you confirm that we won't have two places closed at the same time, because we plan to redevelop Carnival, we discussed earlier as well. Confirm that we won't have two closed at the same time.
Okay. Yes, the plan is to build, close and demolish and rebuild Bulmer, and then get that done smartly, and then close Carnival and do the rebuild of Carnival. So the intention is that we'll have one of them closed at any one time and signpost people to the other facilities. And overlapping closures.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, I think you did point to the table on page 105, but I think it's really worth emphasising just the differences between the current and what is proposed here tonight. So it's an extra lane in the pool, an extra 25 stations in the gym, an extra studio, a teaching pool with a movable floor, which there isn't one there at the moment, so that's absolutely amazing, and also a cafe, which they don't have one there at the moment either. So in terms of the facilities going forward in this proposal, it's really quite a big difference, a really big step up, and as I say, I think quite remarkable, and something really great for that community. And I hope many more people will start to use it in the future. Okay, the recommendations are on page 101, and also going over into page 102, there are 4 recommendations. So we will take them as written. So all those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next item on the agenda, the last item, is the acquisition of land or property to support the infrastructure delivery. And it's page 111, and this item is going to be taken by Councillor David Lee.
Thank you. These are 2 parcels of land to be acquired to facilitate the Winnershall Reef Road and the Northern Reef Road. They're small parcels of land, and the details are in the pink paper, so if we want to discuss any points of that, we can in this open session. The one thing which I would say is that if you look on page 111, it says the executive has requested the site of all land and property acquisitions related to SDL major scheme infrastructure. I think I would like to ask Chairman that we maybe refer this to the Constitutional Working Party, that it only applies when we have the normal criteria for expenditure over a certain figure which comes to the executive. Because sometimes there are very small items which have to be purchased, and if it has to go through all of this, I think it slows the whole process down.
Okay.
That's great.
Thank you. I think we could make a recommendation to take, or make a recommendation for them to examine it at the Constitutional Working Review Group, and for them to make a recommendation about what sum would be an appropriate amount, and then they would take that forward to the full council to approve. Anybody else with any questions or thoughts about that? No? Okay. Great. Okay. Well, the recommendation is on page 111, and we'll take it as written unless otherwise. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, and that concludes the business of this meeting. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chairman.